Hello, whiskey folk. It's Roy, Aquavitae, 9:45 on another Thursday night. Welcome, welcome everybody. And of course, welcome to all the guys who pick this up on the live. If you're driving along in your car right now and you're listening to this as if it was a podcast, fantastic. I really appreciate you doing that. And it seems to work quite well for many of you. But for everybody that's been hanging out in the lounge for the last, seems like forever, I didn't open this bar, okay? This bar was already, the door was kicked in and opened well in advance. There's been loads of people hanging out in here already, just waiting for things to kick off. That sense of community building before we even go live on air, it's fantastic. Everybody chatting amongst themselves. It's great to be able to do this. And it's great to be able to be some kind of host for you here in our virtual pub. So it's fantastic to see you all. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to try and mention as many of you as I possibly can. I constantly watch these things on the replay so that I can enjoy the comments and enjoy the conversation and the chat. And inevitably, I realize that I've missed so many people, so many friends, people that I've met, even my own family, my own brother I miss in these feeds. So yes, if you are trying to get my attention, shout out to Aquavitae, that's used at Aquavitae. But even with that, if it's as busy as it was last week, it can sometimes be too fast for me to keep up, but I will try my absolute best. I appreciate everyone that comes along and participates in this fantastic community event. Let's just quickly, before I talk about the themes and things tonight to keep the chat going, just shout out to a few people who are in. Alan Wilson, he was first in the door tonight by the looks of things, and he's pouring Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Fantastic dram, fantastic way to kick it off, Alan. One of the best event whiskies out there, I have to say. Actually, it's appearing in an Aquavitae video soon. It just needs to be edited. It's here. Caskmate is in. Fantastic to welcome you in, Caskmate. Good to see you. Batman was asking, should he pour a Lagavulin or Bunnahabhain? Well, if I'm going to guide anybody, I would like to guide Batman, right? So I would suggest Bunnahabhain first, but pour the Lagavulin alongside it. Fantastic. Good to welcome you in. Twillagers is in. Fantastic. He's saying it's a little too early for me, still at work. You're in the States probably, but it's fantastic. I hope you can tune in on the sly, my friend. Graham Young, fantastic to see you. Superb, Graham. We had the chance to meet in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. I hope you're doing well. Christina's in. Christina Zarpoli, we also had a chance to meet in the vault recently. Fantastic. The Alchemist Sevi, we also met in Glasgow recently. Brilliant. Superb to see you in, Sevi. Great to welcome you here again. Chris Witham is in, and it's your first time, Chris. Chris, fantastic. Thanks for joining. And everybody say hello to Chris Witham. It's his first time in the lounge tonight. Malt Chronicles is in. Bart, fantastic. Mashburn is in. Superb. The Alchemist, Sevi. I've mentioned Marcus is in. Marcus Heinonen. That looks like a Finnish name, Marcus. I'll apologise because I've probably just corrupted your surname, but I'd like to welcome you regardless. Jason is in. Jason Kleshop, fantastic. Chris Banks Wildlife, long time no see, my friend. Good to welcome you back. Toon Van Rouge, Toon, superb. Good to see you, my friend. Whiskey Jason from Germany, brilliant, Jason. Great to see you in here. Always great to see your name in here. Andy's in, my friend Andy Ardbaggy. Just pause with a little. I actually poured a little blend over some ice. It's particularly warm in the house tonight. I've actually got this window wide open, but it's still not cool enough, which is why I'm pinking up nicely, probably. Rolf is in. Whiskey Wolf, fantastic. Whiskey Wolf, great to see you. And Gillian is in. Superb, Gillian, good to see you. Then I've got a Mr. Goo 82. Even in everybody, I usually watch the videos after the fact, but it's nice to catch a live from the start. Fantastic, and it's nice to welcome you in on the live as well. I think it's good that you're able to pick it up because, you know, these live streams can go for 2 hours. And if you pick it up on the replay, then you can kind of cut it up. But if it was me, the reason I started these live streams, I would want to be in that side and just hanging out and having a whiskey. I appreciate for a lot of you, the timing is not perfect. And you can be at work and things like that. But we do our best. I've just had a huge moth come into the room. Gosh. That's what happens when you try and keep things cool, right? So I have a co-host tonight with a wingspan of about 2 inches. It's just going to be banging around the room. Okay. Who else do we have in? Laddie is in. Rombout is in. Fantastic to see you. Great to have you here. And Scott, Kilted Moose, brilliant to have you in. You're one of, you probably are my most regular guy, Scott. And for that, I am very, very appreciative. Okay, I'll catch up with loads of other folk. Again, I've probably just missed a load of you. There's lots of you in already. Fantastic to have you all here. So tonight, as I mentioned when I spoke about the show beforehand, is kind of in reaction to a few kind of direct messages and questions and things I've had, some comments on the ABCD guide video that I did. And also recently, one of the newer Instagrammers, an account called Whisky Freedom, he kind of put a chat out there and tagged me in it asking about natural presentation of whiskey and what the opinions were and things like that. And it's obviously always going to attract kind of people that have probably just discovered that whiskey is not always as naturally presented as we at first thought, or the marketing or the imagery might have led us to believe. And we discover that there's colouring involved, and they chill filter it to keep it shiny and sparkly and stop it clouding, and that they dilute it down to the absolute minimum they possibly can to make it go as far as they can. And we start to get a wee bit disappointed by all of these practices. But what I wanted to do was to talk about those practices, talk about the ABCDs. That's A for age statement, B for bottling strength, C for chill filtration, and D for dye, which is obviously colouring. And can I talk about why they exist, why they're there, why these practices are in place, and then talk about how they're still employed nowadays, and how to spot when they're not employed, how to spot when we're getting more natural presentation, and what that actually means to you. One of the things I think I missed, or I didn't make enough of a point about in that ABCD video, was probably that, and I did say it in the video, not to let these things get in the way of whiskey experiences, but rather to use it just as a bit more kind of intelligence as you're out there and you're trying to find your next nice whiskey purchase. So we'll kind of want to talk about that. And there was another couple of wee stories that came up in the news recently and things as well. We might get around to talking about those things. I was particularly intrigued by the top 10 whiskey, single malt whiskey list that came out. That was quite an interesting thing to see. And, you know, the usual suspects are in there, but there was a couple of new entries in there, which was quite fun to read about. And then most of the time, I'm going to try my best to hang out with you and chat to you guys. I will say there is a quiz at the end of the night, only for the geeks, only for the guys that want to hang around and have fun with the quiz. It's parked always at the end of the stream. You'd only get involved if you really, really want to. But I'll warn everybody that's staying for the quiz tonight that the Whiskey Rev is back in force. I haven't seen him tune in yet. He has threatened to be here tonight. If he's here, say hello, Rev. Super busy guy. We've struggled to hook up recently, but I managed to hook up and share a couple of drams with the Rev recently, and he contributed some questions to the quiz. I'm not going to tell you which questions are his. I'm just going to let you fathom that out for yourselves. So let's see who's shouting out to me. I'm just going to scroll up quickly, try and grab a couple of random comments from the crowd. Marcus is asking, or he's saying, "Hi Roy, new guy here, greetings from Austria." Marcus, there's two Marcuses in tonight. Marcus, it's fantastic to welcome you here. Brilliant to see you, and thanks for contributing in the chat as well and saying hello. I hope you make you don't become a stranger. You're very welcome. Andy is asking, anyone going to the whiskey show this weekend? Unfortunately not, Andy. My wife is super patient with me. She is being very, very indulgent of me right now, and I'm kicking the backside out of the whiskey gigs right now. And she's doing more than her fair share of covering at home. And if I suggested going down south to the show, can you imagine? Peter Mason, hi Peter. He's saying, I love these, trying to decide between Bowmore 12 or Glenfiddich 15. I would be choosing, certainly if it's the first out of the two, I would be starting with the Glenfiddich 15 tonight. Is that the Solera vatting? The Glenfiddich Solera? It's actually quite a tasty Glenfiddich to me. Gregor is in. Fantastic, Gregor. Good to see you. And he's saying hello to everybody. Good to welcome you, my friend. Dram Dude is in. Fantastic. Good to see you, Dram Dude. Chris is asking, thanks for pronouncing my name correctly. Chris Witham. What a gent. Well, that was just a good guess. I'm just as likely to make a mess of the pronunciations. It's quite curious, actually, because I had a discussion recently about I got involved in a comment stream on one of the how ironic, right? Pronunciation videos that I did. And it was a Gaelic speaker came on and said that he was offended by the way I pronounced Dalhuan because I pronounced it in the whiskey brand sense rather than in the Gaelic sense. And I was very aware of that when I did the video. And I always chose that, you know, I'm not teaching anybody how to speak Gaelic or pronounce Gaelic. It's not really what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is give people suggestions of a way that they could pronounce whiskies. And a lot of those whiskies are rooted in Gaelic names. And Dalhuan was one of those. And Gaelic, I guess it would be Daluanya, which is the right way to say the place perhaps, or the farm, or whatever it is, or to talk about that thing in Gaelic, in a Gaelic context. But it's a brand, it's a Diageo brand, and Diageo refer to it as Dalhuan, and therefore, if you want to ask for a Dalhuan in a bar, you should say Dalhuan probably, and if you said Daluanya, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, you probably would run into some trouble, right? And it's just because I see it as a wee bit as a given name. What's super funny is that aquavite, the way I pronounce aquavite, is probably not correct, right? If you were pronouncing that in the Latin way, it would be aquavitae or tai, where they pronounce all the vowels, all the letters. So the A and E would be pronounced at the end. But my 10-year-old daughter loves to come in and ask me about how the channel's going, and she'll say, "Hey Dad, how's things going with aquavite?" Just to wind me up. So yeah, Chris, it was just fortunate that I pronounced your surname correctly. Phil is in. Superb, Phil. Causeway Coast Whiskies is saying moths are just ugly butterflies. Well, he's landed on the light up there. And he's quite a big guy. Wonder if I could get a picture of him. I don't want to disturb him, actually. And I noticed also that there's another little guy over on the wall behind us. So there I go. What I have to learn is if I'm going to open that window to try and cool the room down, I can't switch the lights on until the last moment. But you're right, they are kind of ugly butterflies, right? They kind of creep me out a little bit. Bobby Purnell, fantastic. Bobby from Texas, good to see you in. Could be worse, Roy. We've got mosquitoes the size of moths these days in Texas. After all the rains, I can imagine that's worse. At least the moth isn't going to bite me, right? Colourless Blue Things, fantastic to see you in. Fantastic name as well. What's the blend, Roy? And is that your go-to? No, it isn't. It's just a blend that I have in, and it's sitting here. And it's kind of part of the theme for tonight as well, Colourless Blue Things. This is Hanky Bannister. It's a 40% ABV blend, as most of them are, by Inverhouse. And if you believe the chat on this, I'm not really sure, this should be made up of Inverhouse malts, which would be Old Pulteney, Annock, Balblair, Balmenic, what's the other one I always forget? Speyburn. But we're not sure which are in it. And the bulk of this is, of course, going to be grain sourced from somewhere, I guess. But Hanky Bannister is one of the oldest blends that's out there. It's one of the most famous. And it's said that the malt content in this is, relatively speaking, quite high. And you can sip it neat, but it's not really what it's intended for. It's intended to be the base for a mixer or to be thrown over some ice like I've done tonight. And honestly, it's pretty delicious sipping it like this. It's a bit sharp around the edges if you sip it neat. So there you go, my friend. The blend I have in the glass tonight is Hanky Bannister. Whiskey Whistle Mark is in. Fantastic, my friend. It's one of the coolest things about this community is how much the channels support each other as well. I absolutely love it. I love the fact that we're constantly jumping in on each other's streams and kind of giving each other that support and chatting to the crowd and just get involved in it all as well. It's very cool. Mark is one of the coolest guys as well. He's an absolute gentleman. Jason Whiskey Wise is in. Somebody's chatting to Jason. Is he in? Fantastic, buddy. I'm sorry I never got in touch with you until a few minutes before the stream. I'm so glad to see you in here tonight. I hope you're feeling a wee bit better. You've been feeling rough earlier this week, and I wanted just to shout out and say, Jason, how are you feeling? Tom R is in. Thomas, saw a fantastic picture of you this week. You were pictured at an SMWS event, I think it was, by Ben Diedrich from Single Malt well, SMWS as well as Single Malt Alliance. Fantastic to see. It was a great picture of you as well, Tom. Fantastic to welcome you in here again. Hoagie Bear is in from Germany. Fantastic, Hoagie. Superb to see you. Nigel is in. Mccowan, Fine and Rare. Did I notice a comment from you that you're, I'm hoping to hook up with you, but you are at Clynelish, or you're very near Clynelish? Because if you are, I can either pay you when I see you, or I can transfer you some money. I'm desperate to get my hands on the distillery exclusive Clynelish. If you've been to Clynelish and I've missed my opportunity, it's no problem. But if you're going there tomorrow, I should have checked. I've got your itinerary. Maybe that's a possibility. I would love to get my hands on one of those. Eric is in. Fantastic. Eric is saying, I don't care how you pronounce my name as long as you pronounce it with a K and not a C. Eric instead of Eric. No problem, Eric. Got you. That's the thing. Just don't spell Eric's name with a C. He's quite sensitive about it. And he did tell me the backstory to that as well, which is kind of funny. Again, one of the other channels as well, Eric is also, he has a wine channel and a whiskey channel. I'm sure I've mentioned Eric before. Great to see you in, my friend. Oh, and you've been sick this week as well. There's a lot of it going around. Jason Coates is in. Fantastic to see you. The Mash and Drum, Jason, another channel. Fantastic, Jason, to see you in. Whiskey Wings, Mike is in, and he's talking to Jason Whiskey Wise, saying 66.7. You're talking about ABV, right? Is that I have a 66.7% Glenlivet. What was told by the docs it would clash with medication. Okay, it's a Glenlivet Nadura then, yes. And Jason Whiskey Wise is saying, if you need some distillery exclusive Clynelish, let me know and I'll send the dram up to you. I'm hoping to get my hands on a bottle, Jason. Whiskey Rover was up there a few weeks ago, but I missed him and he was already back home before I had a chance to reach out to see if he would pick me one up. Okay, fantastic. So if we talk about the ABCDs, I don't know what your opinions are about this whole concept of natural presentation and things like that, but I think it's kind of important to understand why these things have become an issue, and they're all intricately woven into the history of whiskey and how today's contemporary whiskey has come about to be what it is. I'm just going to reach over here and switch on this fan because I've had to close that window. And try not to disturb our moth friend, right? You'd think I'd be prepared. But yeah, you know, these concepts have come about, these kind of different ways to present whiskey have come about because, well, whiskey is a natural product. It's a very natural product. And for the most part, it only has 3 ingredients, as we all know. It has, if we're talking about single malt whiskey, of course, I'm going to specifically focus on single malt. It has barley, water, and yeast. That's it. Now, of course, people get frustrated when they say, no, it doesn't. It has ingredients from the cask, and there are compounds, and there are congeners, and there are flavors that is from the cask, and that's an ingredient. Well, yeah, it's not really though, is it? It's just that it's something that's incidental to the process and incidental to the maturation. It's not an active ingredient that's added to the recipe, but I accept that absolutely that a significant proportion of the flavor comes from the cask. But you know, it's a natural product that's made of these 3 ingredients, and there is very little room for maneuver outside of that. There's not much that they can do except for work with casks and different casks and things to kind of switch up the flavor. They can, obviously, the different ways of distillation affects the flavor and things as well. So we have a scenario that it should be relatively fixed, and yet it's not. Despite those 3 ingredients, it's almost, in fact, it is unlimited, the flavors that you can discover in a glass of whiskey. I actually had a guest here one night and we were talking about whiskey, and he was curious. He was the kind of guy who would have a whiskey lemonade or a whiskey and tonic or something like that. And he said to me, he said, Roy, when you're drinking whiskey neat, I mean, tell me, what is it you're tasting? What does whiskey actually taste of? What do you get? And I was struck by his question because he was a Scotsman and he was a whiskey drinker. But I answered him by saying, everything. I taste everything. And I remember his reaction. He was very kind of, come on. That was his reaction. And I said, okay, I know that sounds ridiculous, but give me a flavor note. Give me anything that you've ever smelled or tasted in your life, and I'll be honest and say that I've never heard it mentioned as a tasting note in whiskey. And it got ridiculous. So we went through all the kind of foods and fruits and everything that you do, but we got to the silly stuff like grass and tree bark and turf and shit and all of it, everything. It was getting ridiculous. And if I haven't discovered it as a tasting note in whiskey, I've heard it mentioned as a tasting note, or I've read it as a tasting note. Think about it. It's very, very difficult to think of something that hasn't been used as a tasting note in whiskey. Plastic, metal, chemicals, gases. It's amazing. And so when I said I taste everything, I was very, very serious. But of course, what we like to do as drinkers is we like to be able to do that tasting thing, and we like to have our single malts and taste whiskey at that very granular level, that individual location, that distillery, and sip the whiskey and taste the whiskey and enjoy the texture and take in all the aromas. But that's not what whiskey has actually been about for a long, long, long time. Whiskey has been about Mr. and Mr. Hankey and Bannister here. Blends. That is the whole reason that we sit here today in this whiskey boom, is thanks to blends. Now, the whiskey boom that we're enjoying right now is not a blend boom. It's a premium whiskey boom. It's a malt boom. It's a bourbon boom. It's about the more artisan whiskies. It's about the more individual expressions. I appreciate the chat's going by like crazy right now, and I'm not able to interact with you. I apologize for the monologue. I hope it's in some way interesting to you. But the previous booms, that's the boom of the late 19th century that carried on to the Patterson crash over about 120 years ago, that was very much a boom on the back of blending. And the post-war blend boom, that was when markets like the US and things were thoroughly activated and taking as much whiskey as we could produce and more. And that was the second boom. And again, it was all about the blends. And the reason that that came about is because one day, and it's said to be Andrew Usher, a grocer, a broker, a whiskey specialist, he would have barrels of whiskey. I've just had a dram in from my friend Scott across town. Cheers, fella. Keep up the great work. Hopefully catch you for a few more drams soon. I have some Lafroig for you. Well, when you're baiting me with Lafroig, Scott, it's going to happen sooner than it would otherwise, right? Absolutely, that would be a pleasure. And thanks for buying me this remote dram. I'll drink the last of my Hankey Bannister and say thank you, Scott. Slant you. You're a star, and I love hanging out with you, and I hope that we can do that soon. So these blends were made by Andrew Usher. He was the original guy. Instead of taking all these really inconsistent and volatile product that would taste different cask by cask by cask, he started to take these casks and he started to blend it to a very specific profile, a flavor profile. And the first one that he blended is said to be Andrew Usher's Old Vatted Glenlivet. And what that meant is that he could then brand that. And because he was branding it, he was then expected to be able to provide a consistent product time and time and time again. And suddenly, when everybody picked up on this and everybody branded their own blends, their own flavor profiles, and they put a label and a logo on it there, people knew that they could reach for that bottle time and time and time again and taste the same thing. That's what blending did. That's what blends did for whiskey. And it was one of the most significant things to happen in whiskey evolution ever. It was quite an amazing turnaround. The idea that there could be quality and consistency in whiskey. And we've all come to enjoy and understand single malts on the back of blends' popularity. But I guarantee you, I live in Scotland. And if I went out into my street here and I walked up and down the street and asked all my neighbours to tell me the difference between a blend and a malt whiskey, I'm not sure how many of them could explain. I don't know how many of them actually know. Malt whiskey is not a new thing. Malt whiskey has always been around. Of course it has. We've always made grain and malt. But single malt and single malt brands are relatively new. Of course, they were always around. They've always been around, but they've not been marketed anything like they are nowadays until the 1960s when Glenlivet and Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, people like that got in on the act and started to market blends, Lafroig as well. They were about before that, but people were drinking bulk blends. When you're making something that has to be consistent, and it has to be consistent time and time again, and the people don't understand the difference between a malt and a blend, they just want their whiskey to be the same as the last bottle they bought, you're probably going to have to consider colouring it. It's a natural product, as we've already touched on. You're going to have to artificially heighten the colour so that you can consistently deliver that colour. You're going to have to, I mean, 40% ABV is strong enough. They're putting a mixer over it anyway. And it's the most cost-efficient way of making the product and making it at a price point where you can sell volume. So it's going to be 40%. They're not going to want to hear your stories of how it's a natural phenomenon for it to be clouding when they pour it over some ice. So they're going to want it chill filtered. They don't know why. They don't know what chill filtration is, but they're going to want that because if they see their glass of whiskey being cloudy and the other brand that they bought wasn't cloudy when they poured it over ice, in their ignorance, they're going to buy the one that stays clear. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. And the age statement thing on top of all of that, age statements have always been around, but there's been times in Scotch whisky history that the age statements were an exception rather than a rule. They were an exception. And it was only really when demand dropped and there was lots and lots of aged whiskies available. We touched on this on the last live stream when we talked about how a 12-year-old is actually a significantly aged product. It's not a young whiskey. And the industry had to start selling us this aged product and explain to us just how good a product it was. So I guess the point I'm getting to is that I think we should demand natural presentation. I prefer all my whiskies, you'll know me just now, are naturally presented product. I love the producers out there that give us it at 46% plus. They don't chill filter. They tell us that they don't add colour. And they try wherever possible to add age statements on their expressions. That's fantastic. But I'm really keen to try and make sure people understand that this concept, that natural presentation concept, doesn't get in the way of whiskey experiences and doesn't generate snobbery in the community or in the whiskey scene, because it's not really what that video I made was meant to do. And I'm going to pour one of the whiskies that I am so happy to have in my cabinet and really would probably score maybe 1.5 out of 4 points on the ABCD scale. There's an age statement in place here and it's 43%. So for the age statement and 0.5 point for the 43%, it scores 1.5. But I don't know for sure that this is unchill filtered. And I don't know that there's no added colour to that. I believe, and I'm told by sources in Germany and things, that this is actually not coloured and it's not actually chill filtered. And I have messed around with this and I can get it to cloud up a wee bit, but generally not so much. In fact, I've got a wee bit of ice here. So what I'll do is I'll pour this Benrinnes 15. Wonderful dram, by the way, wonderful whiskey. Lovely weight to the whiskey, lovely texture. Nice and rich as well. One of the savoury Speyside. This is obviously one of the flora and fauna ones, which everybody knows I quite like. And what I'll do, I'll hold this up so we can get a comparison. I'll have a look at the camera here. Wow, I'm very red tonight. I am pink, I am red. Well, I'm not that red. Can you see this whiskey is very red too tonight? You can see it's quite clear. I'm going to just drop an ice cube into my single malt Benrinnes. Now, I wouldn't recommend anybody do this as a general practice. If I put ice in this whiskey, it's going to completely choke all the aroma. It's going to lock down a lot of the flavour, and it's going to change the texture and things like that as well. It's not going to ruin the dram, but it's going to ruin the taste for an appreciation experience. But it's still going to be an enjoyable drink, right? And you don't need to savour every single dram from every single bottle. What about just occasionally you drop an ice cube in now and again, just to switch it up, just to see what it does? Alan Wilson is saying he just poured a nice little cheap blend, the Old Smuggler, and it's very nice. Are you pouring it over some ice, Alan, or are you throwing some water in, or are you just having it neat? Error McFault is in. I've just seen Scott Kilted Moose shouting out Error McFault saying, it was great to see you. That was a great night. So Error McFault came into town. Just the timing was perfect. We managed to hook up together with him. Scott Kilted Moose came out and joined us. The Alchemist, who's also in here tonight, came out and joined us as well. Went around a few of the Glasgow whiskey haunts, and we had a really fun night, and fantastic drams were shared. And in fact, despite it being kind of relative strangers in that company of four, you know, we never really discovered much about each other. The whole night was talking about whiskey, which, by the way, suits me absolutely perfectly well. Thomas S is in saying, greetings, Roy. Greetings to you as well, Thomas. Fantastic to welcome you in. Hoyt is in as well. Hoyt, good to see you. I just thought you had been doing some recycling. Actually, yes, there is a recycling video. Again, it needs edited, but it's coming to you soon. Okay, so this isn't the way I'm used to drinking Benrinnes. But it's still delicious. And I don't know if you can see, but to me, it's actually clouded over. It's become a bit cloudy, not particularly cloudy. Just give that a swirl. Can you see? It's not really showing up in the camera as much as it is for me. I would suggest you guys are not seeing much difference, but I am. I am seeing a difference this side. But the jury's still out because they don't put it on the bottle. They don't state on there what this chill filtration situation is, or whether it's natural colour or not, presumably because they want to reserve the right to do it if they feel it's needed. Who knows? Who knows? Alan is saying, neat, Roy. Good for you. Amy is bullying everybody into hitting the like buttons as well. Fantastic, Amy. You're wonderful. So we'll get back onto the subject in a second. I want to share with you my newest piece of whiskey swag because I love it. I've not had a chance to use it yet. It's not been used in Anger yet. In this wee box is I don't know if I was the first to buy this. Maybe I wasn't the first. Maybe the second or third. But Vin at No Nonsense Whiskey decided he wanted to try and build up enough capital to invest in coins and getting some No Nonsense Whiskey's coins made. And I understand where he's coming from there because it's expensive to buy these, right? Especially, I didn't buy enough of the coins and I'm having to disappoint people just now because I'm sold out. But he's trying to get money together to do that. So he started off with a smaller project, but what a slick project he did. Look at this thing. Let's just try and open up the camera here. It's a little funnel. And this is a No Nonsense Whiskey hip flask. Or a juice box. How cool is that? This is kind of matte black finish, and it's kind of the black finish has been kind of etched away to leave a bare metal finish with his logo on there. But I used to buy a lot of hip flasks, and I used to go through a lot of them. I used to fill them with whiskey when I was traveling. But I would find somebody that enjoyed the whiskey that was in the hip flask, and I would just leave it with them and gift it to them. So I found myself going through a lot of hip flasks. But this is not a hip flask I'll give away. I'm really, really pleased with this, and I think it's dead cool. I don't know if Finn's got any left. He only bought a small amount of them, but he was selling them at a very reasonable price as well. I paid £15 for this, which I think is the going rate. That's not mates rates or anything, which I think is very, very reasonable. But I wanted to share that with you because I thought it was cool. And if hip flasks are your thing, if you're a golfer, if you're a walker or a hiker, or you just sometimes like to smuggle whiskey into a bar or a pub, this is the gadget for you. It's really cool. And also, this little cool thing as well, so the Aquavitae coins you know about, but I got contacted by an Instagrammer who wanted to do just a trade. He wanted to swap a coin. And this is a Old Soul Whiskey Guy coin, number 67, that he sent me in exchange for an Aquavitae coin, which I think is very cool. And it's actually the exact same coin and size as the ones that we do for Aquavitae channel, for Scotch for Dummies, for China ANC, and of course the originals, the Scotch test dummies. I've just had a super chat in from Twillagers. That's fantastic. He's saying, Slantia, thought you might want to share with your patient wife. You star. You know, she's going to spot that, right? She's going to claim her chunk. But thank you very, very much, Twillagers. Cheers to you with my ever so slightly chilled Benrinnes. Gregor is saying, sorry if it was a bit silent here. I just had launched a mini event for this Sunday on my Twitter account. For those interested, it's Greg's Whiskey G. Sorry to spoil your life for a second. Not at all, Gregor. Absolutely no problem. You have to imagine that you're hanging out in a lounge. You're sitting there in a virtual pub, right? And whatever you want to talk about is whatever you want to talk about. We have to be as considerate and as pleasant as if we were standing in front of each other in real life, as welcoming. And yes, but don't worry about that. You don't ever need to apologise to me, Gregor, no problem. Rob is in from Whisky in the Six, superb, and he's saying, you have a taste of the Springbank 12 yet? The one that you sent to me? No, I haven't, Rob. Would you like me to pour it tonight? I have it here. I have it next to me. I have a lot of samples here to get through. I have samples from Scott. I have samples from guys at the Whisky Club. I have samples from Error. Error has actually given me, when he came over from Belgium, he gave me a blind. I don't know if I can show you this. No, it's down there somewhere. He gave me a blind challenge. So what I'm going to do on a Patreon live is I'm going to hang out just with patrons. And I'm talking about doing a kind of dual time zone thing there to try and cover them. It's been difficult. It's really difficult to find the time and to schedule it. But when I do that, what I'll do first is just do a single Patreon-only live stream, and I'll do Aaron McFault's blind challenge that he's given me, because he's kind of done it in the Aquavitae way, where he's numbered up the bottles, and he's also numbered the envelopes with instructions and things. And I have to also share with you that I have just this week finished. I was up late on Tuesday night to finish Rob from Whisky in the Six, who's in tonight. I've just finished editing his blind challenge. So he's finished. He finished it back in August, actually, and it's just taken me a while to get to it. I know. And he's nominated the next guy as well. So in the next few days, week or so, I'm not sure when Rob wants to release it. It obviously goes out on Rob's channel. You'll see the next blind challenge as well. So tell me, have you been sharing with me what your thoughts are on natural presentation? Do you insist on it? Does it offend you when it's not met? Or are you okay with it? And are you actually just judging the whiskey for what's in the glass and judging it based on context and intended market rather than on, your own kind of demands or standards? Rob is saying, hey, all Roy's lives are always off the hook. 110, killing the game. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but I think it's I don't know how many people actually listen to me, Rob. I think, and it's really very cool. That they're all just kind of hanging out, like I say, in the kind of virtual lounge and just talking to each other, hopefully pouring something nice. And I understand, yes, if you're at work, perhaps not. Maybe you can pick it up on the replay and watch the chat as it goes by and pour something nice. Fantastic. Rolf is saying today Serge Valentine gave Old Pulteney 18. That's the new Old Pulteney 18 in a very good review. Well, I would hope so, because because they've switched up the range and ditched the 17 and the 21, replaced it with a 15 and an 18, you wouldn't think that they've lost the quality. It's fantastic spirit. Malt Review's in. He's saying good evening. Now, Malt Review, it's probably behind that Malt Review persona there is probably, I hope it's Whiskey Rover, which is JJ. He, at the Fife Whisky Festival at the start of this year, gave me an Old Pulteney. And actually, Andy, our baggie, I think it was Andy who was carrying it. And I think it was Andy's whiskey, if I'm honest. But it was Jason that got Andy to come over and pour me a dram of this Old Pulteney. But it was resplendent. It was a 1973 sherry cask Old Pulteney, and it was heavenly. In fact, that was the last dram I had all day, and that was only about half or 2/3 of the way through the festival. I just couldn't bring myself to take that flavour out of my palate, out of my mouth. And my friend, the other Roy, and I walked along to the shop instead of going round the whiskey festival to drink any more whiskies. So yeah, wonderful whiskey. It meant it ended my whiskey drinking that day. Amazing experience. So thanks JJ, and thanks Andy. Go Habs is in. Fantastic to see you. He's saying hi, Roy. Good to see you as well. Go Habs. Great to have you in. Twillagers is saying, at Eric Waite, thanks to you and Aquavitae, we are more informed. But what you're finding is, yes, I'm bringing these kind of monologues and things like that, Twillagers, but what's happening, and what you'll come to realise very, very quickly, is just how much intelligence is in the community, how much knowledge is in the community. There's super knowledgeable guys in here, the guys like Hoagie Bear and Connor Strang and JJ Malt Review, and all of these guys all have deep understanding of whiskey. Some of them at bizarrely young ages, which I think is super encouraging. Causeway Coast Whiskies, Phyllis saying, Aquavitae, if you want a reason why E150 should be banned, you should try Conor McGregor's new one. Tastes like a 3-year-old, looks like a 15-year-old sherry cask matured whiskey. But again, you have to understand the context of that whiskey, what it's there to do. I fully imagine that Conor McGregor is planning to keep that partnership and agreement going with that distillery to kind of continually put that product out and try and do as much as he can with it. And in order to do that, the people that are drinking that whiskey are not going to be us. It's not for whiskey drinkers, is it? It's for people that are supporters of him and supporters of the charity that he's raising funds for. You know, I don't think that's going to be a collector's whiskey. That's just going to keep going and going and going. And it's going to be a price point whiskey. So if that changes colour, you know, each batch was up and down and up and down, he's not going to achieve his successes, is he? Because he's not selling to people who understand why a whiskey might be a different colour from one batch to the next. Still, I hear that it is Phil, you've probably tried it if you're saying it tastes like a 3-year-old. I hear that it is a wee bit rough around the edges. But again, is it going to be any worse than this? This isn't bad, this Hanky Bannister, by the way. But in the context of throwing it over ice, it's probably going to be fine, I guess. Reb is in, Reb Mordecai. Fantastic, Reb. Good to see you as well. You recently asked me to look into an inquiry for you, and another guy who I don't know if he's been in tonight, Everwind, sent me an article, and I immediately thought of you to send the article on to. It's fantastic reading, and it's all to do with sherry casks and things like that. So I will remind me, my friend, if I forget to send the article on to you, remind me and I'll send it along. Malt Musketeers is in, fantastic. I'm glad you've joined tonight. I've got the samples you gave me here and I'm hoping to pour these tonight. Greg, I guess that's in. He's saying, did you get anything back from Deanston regarding them and getting them on the show? Loved the brandy finish we had at the tasting. So that's Ross that's in. Fantastic, Ross. So Ross and Greg are two guys, Malt Musketeers, and they've managed to source some really quite fine whiskey and start bottling it and selling it at quite a hobby level. But they're not screwing around. They've got this, which is a 9-year-old, let's say, one of the most northerly distilleries, but not on the mainland. This is a port finished 9-year-old. I'm going to perhaps open one of these tonight. This is an Islay whiskey, probably my favourite Islay whiskey, if that gives you any clues as well. And obviously a lot of the brokers and a lot of the people that have these casks, because of the agreements and the contracts that the cask exchange hands under, the brands are trying to protect the branding and the consistency that I'm talking about, exactly what I'm talking about. So they sell it as an undisclosed distillery, an undisclosed cask, and they tend to try to be quite vague about the provenance. But of course, people get to know about it. But what they don't want is it being marketed as the brand. They want to, the brand themselves want to keep control of their quality and consistency, which is, I guess, understandable. But yeah, they gave me samples of 2 of their bottlings. What they didn't give me a sample of, though, was their 26-year-old, I think it is, Bunnahabhain, and a 34-year-old St. Magdalene, Linlithgow. Can you imagine? I mean, I dread to think, and I know it's going to be an expensive whiskey, but I think their concept is to bottle it in smaller bottles, to share it out and get it to as many people as possible, rather than put it in larger bottles, have to charge a fortune for it, and fewer people get to taste these legends that were whiskies such as the St. Magdalenes of the world and things like that. But to answer your question, Ross, I didn't hear anything back from Deanston yet, but that wasn't the arrangement. I've got to get in touch with them. And I have reached out to a few people recently, and it's really, really tough to get guests. It's easy to get guests. What's tough is to schedule it and to find their value, right? There's no point in just having a guest on and chatting about stuff. I like there to be a reason, and I like there to be, when I have another channel on here, for example, I want to have a channel that I feel that I can really connect with and enjoy, and there's a chemistry there and we can have fun with each other. When I have a guest on, I want there to be a point to the guest being there for the community's sake and not really for the guest's sake. I don't want the guest to get a platform here just to sell something. I would rather they were here for the sharing, for the community, the passion, for the love of whiskey. And that's a really difficult thing to sell to people when you want them to come and join you as a guest, isn't it? But nevertheless, that's the concept. It's the idea of the show. And I'm sure some guests I will get on may have something to sell. They may have something selling. But that won't be the reason for their presence. If it is, it would be an incidental reason at best. Whiskey Wings is saying he ordered his earlier and he's getting it off at the Whisky Exchange show on Monday. Well, I wonder what that is. Did I miss that? Ron Butt is saying, I wanted to brand my own nerd-style glasses, but decided it was too much work. It is difficult, but do you know the ones that you should do, Ron Butt, is you should do the blue blind glasses, the one that you gifted me. It's a fantastic glass. One of my favourite shaped glasses, actually, is that nice Capita glass. But it is a lot of work. Listen, the merch thing, people think you just go out, you place an order for merch, and then you just sell it. It's an absolute minefield. It really, really is. Having said that, my coins, I'm super happy about my coins. The only disappointment about the coins is that it's sold out, and I'm having to reply to emails every day apologising that I don't have any more coins to sell. Okay, let's get back down to the chat and see what I've been missing. Aquavite Malt Whisky is saying they are Bunna and St. Mags sitting here for a private tasting we discussed. You've not been forgotten. Bring your camera if you want to broadcast from Edinburgh. Okay, so is this a private tasting? Wow. Well, St. Magdalene, you might find a turn up. Casmate is saying that's a giant vat of new make. I wonder if you're talking about the proper 12. Whiskey Throttle saying, I would like to do it as a way to pay it forward to the subs in the chat. Oh no, I've lost the theme of what everyone's talking about. This is when I need my moderators. And has anyone seen the Whiskey Rev? Is he in yet? Mashburn is saying there's always a market for anything without sample presentation. Becomes important, especially something in the presentation turns out to be deceptive once you get the bottle home. I mean, we do get caught out, right? But that's the reason for the ABCDs existing, because if you're standing in a shop or you're browsing online or something and you pick up a bottle and you look at it and you see immediately that it's presented at 40%, all the information on the bottle is loose, willy marketing backstory nonsense. You see that there's no mention of chill filtration, there's no mention of being presented at natural colour, and the marketing stuff doesn't really talk about the creation of the whiskey. It doesn't talk about how it's made, it talks more about the reason why it exists. Then you know the context of that whiskey is being sold for a thing rather than the whiskey. And it's not, I'm not suggesting that that makes it a bad whiskey. All I'm saying is that if you pick up another bottle and you see that it's presented at 46 something, 47 beyond, immediately you know you're in the right zone. And that's probably the biggest thing I look for is the ABV. It's become super, super important to me. Then the next thing would probably be some mention of how the whiskey is presented. You know, it doesn't need to be a year age statement. It can be a vintage. It could just be distillation and bottling details, of course. But then I'm looking for whether it's coloured or not and how it's been handled in terms of filtration. And, you know, the age statement, yeah, I mean, it's nice to see an age statement. It's nice to get information there, but that's probably the thing that I'm least insistent about. Okay, Castmate is saying your glass of water, yeah. And I think because of this camera, it actually looks bigger than it actually is, but you think I'm drinking new make here. Yeah, can you imagine? Malt Chronicles is saying Aquavit. There's no way you can keep up tonight. It's crazy. I know it was super, super crazy last week. I didn't give up. I tried my absolute best, but it was really difficult. And it's as the chat's scrolling past, and I'm just trying to pick up things as it goes past. It is quite difficult. And Jason is saying no review just yet. He did say he would pop in, and if he doesn't make it, he'll be here in spirit because his questions will be here at the end. Everwind is saying you should. Nice to see Everwind. I mentioned you earlier. Fantastic article you sent me. Very succinct way to sum up some of the kind of myths surrounding sherry casks and things like that. And again, it's very closely linked to what I'm talking about here tonight. And that's the idea that you first think of something about whiskey and then you realize it's not the case. So you kind of pull a huff about it, and then you learn more about whiskey, and then you realize that all of that is not really the case, and you kind of go through this journey in whiskey that everything you learn just seems to reveal how little you actually know. And that article was a perfect example of that. So it was a really good article. And Andy's saying good night. He's saying he needs to split off to London tomorrow. You're a lucky guy because you're hitting up the show. Fantastic, Andy, and it's great to have you dropping in. Amy W is filling in as a moderator. Hoyt, yes. Amy does a very, very good job despite not having that that little spanner next to her name. Actually, I wonder if Amy would be offended if I gave her the honorary position of moderator for her bullying for thumbs up. How have you done tonight, Amy? You usually did 59 thumbs up. You're just some kind of star, Amy. By the way, you only give me a thumbs up if you're actually enjoying yourself. And if you choose to thumb down, that's absolutely fine as well. YouTube sees it as a positive thing. But I think the difficulty we have with it is it's difficult to interpret why we had a thumbs down. And we're just people making videos and doing lives from our homes. And it's nice to kind of get feedback as to what we're doing wrong. And if you think it's something that we can't fix, if you think it's something you just don't like us, you don't like our personalities or our presentation, don't down thumb. Just go to a channel that you enjoy, that you can connect with. But Amy is awesome at reminding us all, and I'm very, very guilty of it as well, especially when I'm watching a live stream. When I watch a pre-recorded video, before I click off, I always remember to give it a thumbs up when I've enjoyed the video, and often like to leave comments as well, especially if it's affected me or if I've enjoyed it. But she's very good at reminding people of the thing that I always forget, and that is to kind of thumb up a live video as well. Everyone is saying after reading that article on sherry casks, you have to question even the term sherry cask is stretching the truth, in my humble opinion. Yeah, it's the way it's always been. It's the way it's always been. This romantic idea that there were these kind of really ancient, mature, sherry casks that have contained mature whiskey in them all their life, and then suddenly they give up their mature sherry in them all their life. Then they give up their sherry to go off and be bottled. Then that's going to just be available to the Scotch industry or any other industry to use as they want. It's far too valuable to the sherry industry. There's much less symbiosis there than you would originally imagine. And the transport casks, which I think that article touched on, the transport casks that we used to get bulk sherry in over here, was not high-end valuable casks that was coming in from the bodegas and things. They were specially made, more robust transport casks. So the sherry was in those casks for transport, specifically made casks for that reason, for as long as it took to get to the port, to get on the ship, to take the transportation to wherever it was going, to sit at the port at the other side, warehouse. Eventually it would have got bottled, and it would have been some weeks or months that the sherry was sitting in that cask, and then it would become available after emptied for another use. But it was never an exclusive sherry cask. Sorry, that's not true to say never. There are true sherry casks used to mature whiskey, but it's very, very rare because they're really, really valuable. And Andrew has just given me a virtual dram all the way from Australia saying slant you to a long week. And the chat disappeared. For us, Roy, about to start the working day. Wow. It's Friday morning for you, Andrew. That's wonderful of you. Thank you very much. Slant you, my friend, and lovely to have you and welcome you in again. Rombout, if you remind me, I'll send you across the article as well. Everwind also has the article. He sent it to me. It was pretty cool. It's an independent piece, so it's not absolutely guaranteed to be accurate all the way through, but it's very insightful. And I think it's quite good at that kind of balanced approach to saying, you know, when people kind of get a bit nostalgic about whiskey and things, and the reality of it is often a bit more complex. Jason Answorth is saying, Roy, people love my Aqua Vitae t-shirt. Fantastic. I've not sold out of t-shirts yet. I have sold out of some colours and some sizes, but I do have some t-shirts available. What I'm a bit disappointed about, I have to share. I bought a decent amount of women's t-shirts because this is an inclusive community. It's not just men's t-shirts. There was never a way I was going to go out and buy only men's t-shirts and not have any women's t-shirts. My wife took a couple. Some friends I have took a couple of those, but I've only sold 2 women's t-shirts. Now, I'm not actually surprised at that because, you know, the ratio of women watching versus men, I understand. But that's a shame. I'd like it to be more. And that when there's a gender specific thing like a t-shirt coming along, I would like to always be able to get at least some women's in as well. So that if you're a Laura, if you're a Jill, I know that you have one. If you're a Christina, if you're one of the women, and I'm struggling to remember you all, Amy, that are watching and decide that you might like an Aqua Vitae t-shirt, I do have some women's t-shirts left, although I do only have small, medium, and large, but I have them in both colours. All the XXLs are sold out, but the rest of the men's sizes, small, medium, large, and XL, I have more or less both colours available in them. There's not that many left, but there are still some left. It's good to hear that people like your t-shirt. The most important thing though, Jason, is do you like the t-shirt? I spoke to Charlie about colouring and whiskey a few weeks back. Interesting things he had to say about it and testing he and several other experts done with it. That would be fantastic. And Charlie M, you're obviously talking about Charlie McLean Ross. That would be fantastic to hear his input. Thomas is saying he's off. Fantastic, Thomas. Sorry to see that you're not staying for the quiz tonight. Hopefully you can pick it up on the replay and you can download it after as well, as long as I remember to put the Google Docs link in the description. I'll try and remember to do that tonight. Aqua Vitae is asking if I have a problem with cork shrinkage. I have to steam my corks quite often. And he's talking about whiskey bottles. And I've just had Dustin Silvestri, fantastic Dustin. I've not seen that name before. And he's talking to DH Silv too, who I haven't seen in tonight, but I imagine he must be in. Really want to stay for the full thing, but got an exam to study for. Thank you for helping bring this community together. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll join us again. Cheers to you, my friend, and thank you for the virtual dram. Gohabs is saying save a women's shirt for Swami. Actually, I did send a shirt to Swami, but he got in touch with me tonight to say it hasn't arrived yet. There's a few parcels that didn't make it through. I'm really pissed off about this. I was shipping. I was sometimes taking 30 plus packages along at a time to ship and label them all up and things like that. And I've got all the receipts here, literally all the receipts from the co-op, but these are only certificates of posting from the post office, sorry. So it's not really a guarantee. Nothing was to be signed for or recorded delivery or anything. Some of them have turned up just very late. Some of them went wayward. Whiskey Bikers ended up in Canada, and he's in the Netherlands, and it had to get shipped back again. But he got in touch to say that he eventually did get his. Rolf, Whiskey Wolf, eventually got his as well, which I'm glad to hear. And I'm hoping that they'll just take a while. Whiskey Throttle is saying shrinking what? You heard right, Daniel. Behave yourself. Whiskey Yoshi is in. Fantastic, my friend, and welcome to my Patreon as well. You're a superstar. Thank you so much. And it's great to see you in on the live as well. It must be kind of 6 hours behind. I really appreciate you joining in. And Malt Chronicles is saying, if you have a deep V-neck for women, I'm sure the Bourbon Babe Instagram handle would like one. Wink, wink. I don't know who that is, Malt Chronicles, but I don't. It's a round neck, I'm afraid. Just a standard round neck in a woman's fit. Swami is on flagged list, lol. Hey, Swami, I haven't seen him in tonight. Is he in? And Whiskey Rover is in tonight as well. Have you switched accounts, Rover? Have you switched accounts on me, or have you cloned yourself? Because if you've cloned yourself, that would explain how you are as prolific in the whiskey community as you are. If there's two of you, that would be funny. Jason Coates is saying, as a veteran shipper of many thousands of packages in the last decade, give it time. It's rare that one actually gets lost. Yeah, you know, there's a couple of them that were just first class in the UK. One of them turned up, thankfully. But there's another one that I'm still waiting to turn up. And I think the reason I'm sure it will turn up, actually, is that it's got a return address on there. So even if it doesn't make it, for whatever reason, to the send address, it should make it back to me, right? Thanks for that, Jason. I hope that they eventually all get there. I'm probably close to 3 weeks or more into, maybe more actually, all of these. Jag is in, Jag Singh is in. Fantastic, Jag. Night, Roy, and everyone else. Way past my bedtime. Where are you, Jag? Very busy night. Hope you and others get a chance to have a look at my question about the ScotRail tour. Any advice appreciated. I'll look out for that, Jag, after the event tonight. And thanks for joining, my friend. Whiskey Wolf has just said, why do I choose hobbies where the majority is men pushing 50? Because you're a man pushing 50, perhaps. I don't know. Yesterday I attended a Genesis tribute band's concert. Yeah, guess how many women. I can imagine, right? I can imagine. I would like it to be less like that. I would like it to be more inclusive. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care how you eat, how you pray, how you think. For me, it's always about the whiskey, and it tends to be a whiskey thing. The reason that we're all here is for the whiskey, right? How's the time now? It's 10 to 11. So we're getting on a wee bit. So I'm just going to cover a couple of other small things, then we can go on to the quiz. Did anybody pick up the IWSR top 10 whiskies list? It was quite interesting reading. I just kind of like that stuff, that geeky thing. And in the theme of what we're talking about tonight, where kind of the blends that drive the market, I mean, still they say it's, you know, close to 90% of the whiskey produced in Scotland is for blends. It's still very much the king in terms of volume. But in terms of value, single malt and premium blends is very, very quickly eating into that in huge, huge, huge chunks. And we're seeing the exact same phenomena happening in the bourbon industry in the States, and premium artisan whiskies just exploding and blowing up everywhere. Small batches, the new thing, and but blends are still king in terms of volume. That's just how it is. But recently, the IWSR, as they released their top 10. Now I should have maybe put a quiz question in for this. It would have been quite cool. But I'm going to give you a wee countdown just in case you didn't pick up the article. It's quite interesting reading. Number 10 of the best-selling malt whiskey. This is a top 10 malt whiskey. There are no blends in this list. Number 10 is actually Glen Grant, which is owned by Campari now, an Italian company. And that makes sense because Glen Grant, for as long as the Italians can remember, probably, Glen Grant has been the premier single malt in Italy. And they ship just short of 300,000 9-litre cases a year. That doesn't mean a lot to me, 300,000 9-litre cases, but just remember 300,000 is the volume you need to remember, I guess. Let me keep an eye on the chat while I go through this list. Try and keep it less of a monologue. Kevin Mayato, welcome in. Kevin, he's saying he just got home from work. Glad he made the stream. I'm glad you made the stream as well, my friend. It's good to welcome you in. Whiskey Rover is saying Tormore. Of course you would. You and I need to have a chat about that one day. Number 9 is Aberlour. Now, again, that's a bit similar to Glen Grant because Aberlour, the vast majority of the Aberlour product is either sold as a single malt as Aberlour in France or goes on to is it Lawson's? I think it's the Lawson's blend, which I think is the biggest blend in France. France is a huge market for Aberlour, and they come in at number 9. I think they took a bit of a hit last year because of the trade issues with France. But yeah, again, just sort of short of 300,000 cases. At number 8, and this is a shock to me, given the scale of this distillery, this is a shock. It's one of the biggest Islay distilleries, but it's not the biggest, and that's Lefroy. They come in at number 8 with 306,000 cases. Slightly above that is another surprise. Monkey Shoulder at number 7. A blended malt. Now, there was a time that Monkey Shoulder was sold as a triple malt because it was Balvenie, Glenfiddich and Kinninvie that was in there, but of course that's not going to last forever. And the suspicion is now, and it has been for a while, I've mentioned it before, that the reason that they're not talking about it being a triple malt anymore is that it's they're using malt from Ailsa Bay down in Girvan in the Lowlands, which is a pretty big and flexible malt distillery owned by William Grant & Son in the Girvan Grain Complex. But yeah, Monkey Shoulder, 311,000 cases. So we're all at kind of similar level here, around about the 300,000 cases mark, but it switches up. Number 6 is Balvenie, which is an amazing achievement because we're talking premium single malt now. Balvenie is getting into that premium category. It's difficult to pick up an inexpensive Balvenie, and I have to take a hat off to William Grant & Son. They're very good at making products at a price point that just people buy. Their marketing is, I'm not sure it can be matched. Anything that Grant's put out there is marketed, and whether we agree with that or not, it's not what I'm debating here. It's just the fact that it's damn effective. Connor Strang is in, shouting for the quiz. Of course you are, Connor. It's fantastic to see you, and it's great to have you. The quiz will be happening later, but I do warn you, Connor, in case you weren't in earlier, the Whiskey Rev is in full effect, and you will smell his presence in tonight's quiz. So it might not be a 10 out of 10 night, but for you, who knows? The number 5 is Glenmorangie. Now, I think Glenmorangie is often number 1 in the UK, but in terms of internationally, it's suddenly a big jump from the Balvenie, where they were at 335,000 cases. For Balvenie, it jumps up to just over 500,000 cases. Sorry, for Glenmorangie, did I say Glenmorangie? 500,000 cases. That's a significant jump. That's a lot of malt whiskey getting sold out of Glenmorangie. Quite an achievement. Number 4, I like Diageo. I'm not a Diageo hater, but the Singleton thing, maybe it's not Diageo. This is the IWSR that have just taken the Singleton series and lumped it into one. So Singleton is Glen Ord from the Highlands, Glendullan from Dufftown, and Dufftown itself. So it's 2 Speyside distilleries and a Highland distillery, but they're all branded under the Singleton umbrella brand, if you like, and then they have the individual distillery underneath. All 12-year-old whiskies, all very similar flavour profile. And it used to be that there was a geographical difference, but I think they've stopped doing that now. But Singleton, believe it or not, are selling way over 518,000 cases, way over 500,000 cases. Quite amazing. But now the big 3. Can anybody guess who they are? And I predict number 3 is not going to stay number 3. Number 3 at 907,000 cases, huge jump, is Mccowan. Unbelievable. And the capacity that they're able to produce now at the new distillery. Fully imagine that in the years to come, within the next decade, that's going to jump significantly. Number 2 and number 1 are always the guys that are, and number 2 did actually make it number 1 for 1 or 2 years, I think. Number 2 is the Glenlivet, 1.07 million cases. So consider the difference there. Consider the volumes that those guys are putting out. And number 1, of course, is another Grant's brand, Glenfiddich. So out of the top 10 best-selling malt whiskies in the world, Scotch malt whiskies, I'm speaking about Scotch, of course, William Grant's have 3 in the top 10 list. They have Monkey Shoulder, they have Balvenie, and they have Glenfiddich. And that Monkey Shoulder is going to continue to grow and grow and grow, and that will climb up that list, I fully predict. Quite surprising. Malt Cask is saying Fiddick, you're absolutely right. Red Mordecai is saying number 1 is Kilchoman. That's right. But the funny thing here is that, you know, when we talk about value, I imagine Mccowan is probably number 1 in terms of pure value. And it would be interesting to see how that list would be affected and change. Maybe you need a bigger spread. You need to look at the top 25, top 50 to see how that would switch up when you were looking at the value of the product as well. And Gregor is saying, okay, we're not necessarily talking about quality in the top 5, at least for entry level versions, in my humble opinion. Well, I have to be honest with you, you don't get that position by putting out crap. So yes, it might not be our preferred pour, Gregor. It might not be something that we love. It might, I mean, everybody knows how much I like Glenfiddich 12. I know it's controversial, but when I'm starting my pours at the start of the night, it's often a Glenfiddich that I'll pour. And I actually love the stuff, and I always have it in the cabinet. You're absolutely right. There are other things that's come out of the exact same producer that I don't care for at all. Triple cask, anyone? 12-year-old, 16-year-old? Disaster. Gorgeous whiskey ruined by being sold to people who don't appreciate it at 40% ABV. You know, it was one of those whiskies that for me, I was tasting it and going, oh God, if there's any way I could add more ABV into this, if I could get the strength back into this. So disappointed in it, because I'm sure it would have been way, way better than it actually was. By the way, I'm pouring a Malt Musketeers Northern Highlands 9-year-old port cask finish. Sample given to me by Ross, who's in tonight. No, it was his friend Greg. We managed to meet in Edinburgh a few months back. Oh wow, fresh baked pastries. This is quite high ABV, quite strong. Quite a pink hue to it as well. Port cask, obviously. Bill is in. Bill, you star. So if anybody's seen, Bill, anytime you're in, I miss you. I always see you after the event. I'm so glad I caught you tonight. If anybody's seen my Magic of Isla video, the buddy that I travelled to Isla with is Bill, and it's great to see him in here tonight. Wondering about Cadenhead Kalila, 1982, 35 year. Okay, there's a couple of things that you're saying there is fantastic. One of them being Cadenheads, Kalila, all of it's fantastic. 1982, 35-year-old, $400 at Total Wine. I know it's a lot, but after you shared the Glenfarclas 35 with me, I want to have something special on my shelf. Okay, yeah, superb. For me to come to California, I mean, I shared Glenfarclas 40 with you, Bill. So that's 5 years too young. But honestly, that dram, I've never tried, never seen it. There's a guy in here tonight who might have tried it. Whiskey Rover might know that very expression. But I imagine that will be fairly resplendent. A 1982 Kalila. Wonderful. Daniel saying Whiskey Throttle from a trip to Scotland in October. Fantastic. How should I dress? I want to pack as light as possible. Pack lightly, but pack layers. So you're talking t-shirts. You're talking like a light fleece, and then a rain layer as well, like a waterproof layer. Don't go for the heavy Eskimo gear because the weather in Scotland is never actually Canada cold, but it's super, super changeable. So if you pack in layers, and you just have to walk around with a backpack everywhere for you don't use the layers. And then obviously be able to, there's no such thing as bad weather, right? It's just wrong clothes. Jan Frederick Leverson is in. Fantastic, Jan, good to see you. I missed the comment there, it jumped again. Everyone is saying he's been impressed by the Glenlivet 18 and the Nadura line. Yes, some Nadura is very, very good, actually. And I had a Glenlivet 18 from Duty Free, and I drank it in Spain, and I loved it. I really, really liked it. But, you know, it's... I didn't replace it, so that probably tells a tale there. But I did like it. Rolf is saying, you're not a snob like Whisky Rover. Well, Whisky Rover has a very, very... He's I always joke that he's at the very, very jaggy edge of whiskey consumption. He really, if you see how prolific he is, how many expressions that he's able to try, how much he writes about whiskey, he is kind of... he's the guy out there at the very, very jaggy edge. And everybody's got a space to occupy in the whiskey landscape. And he's the guy that's occupying that space for us. Now, would you manage to get Jason in a room and sit down and engage him with a Glenlivet 18? Perhaps not. But I think you'd be surprised. We're talking about the guy who recommended a non-age statement Glenkeith to me and said it was pretty good. It's got a bit better since it's been open, but I didn't love it on first pour, if I'm honest. And when we met at the Fife Whisky Festival, as a peace token, he brought along a much more mature or a much older Glenkeith 10-year-old, which was really nice of him. The Alchemist, Mccowan Fine and Rare, and Aquavita is saying thank you for Whisky Throttle. T Green is saying greetings, better late than never. Absolutely. You're just in time for the quiz, T Green. I hope you hang around and try and answer some questions. It is multiple choice tonight, so despite it being Whisky Rev questions, there is at least a 33% chance of you getting them all right, or each one right. And Colours Blue Things is now turning in as well, saying early start tomorrow, so got to go. I actually have an early start as well. I've got some huge pressure on me right now at work, and I need to try and keep myself, which is probably why I'm being a little bit parsimonious in the pours tonight. The last sip I had of this, I just let go down. Try and taste it this time. Would I have tasted that port if I was sipping it blind? I have to say I think so. I think it's very, very port forward. It's high ABV, but it's not so high ABV that it's jagged. It's quite nice. Long drying finish, quite fruity. Yeah, the baked thing is still happening there. So like an apple-y thing, like a sugary, cinnamony baked apple thing. If this is a distillery, I think it is, which I'm led to believe that it is, I would never place it as that. No, I wouldn't place it as that. Is it exclusively port aged? No, I think it's port finish, caskmate. But if Ross is still in, he would be able to answer that for sure. Okay, so I wonder if Jason is still in. Jason has not been feeling very well, my friend down in London. Jason, I love your idea of, I love both your ideas actually, of me coming down to London for one of your nights, but also love your idea of getting everybody together and having an event up here in Glasgow. There's a few people showing interest in that, and I think I would like to just kind of leave that simmering there for people to come up with ideas how that might actually happen. It's great to have these virtual nights where we get together, and I know that distance and miles and oceans separate us, but it's really nice when we have opportunities to at least bring some of us together so we can shake hands, share a dram and breathe the same air and get to know each other a bit better. The Whisky Rev is in. Hello, my friend. Great to see you. I apologise if you've been in for a while and this is me seeing you for the first time, but it's good to welcome you in. And I have been softening the ground to everybody who wants to stay and hang around tonight for the quiz. Fully aware that significant contributions are in the quiz from you tonight. And I think there is a difference in the quiz questions that I put together versus you. I'd just like to mention, by the way, before everybody disappears, especially you guys that's on a later time zone, that tomorrow evening, the Canadians, Trenny and C, you know the YouTube channel, Trenny and C Whiskey channel, they're doing their first live stream tomorrow evening. They're late to the game because they always had dial-up connections wherever they are in Canada. They never had a powerful enough upload to be able to host a live stream. But tomorrow evening on Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific time, so West Coast US, West Coast Canada, they're going to be hosting their first ever live stream, and they're doing a Weller 12 giveaway. They've got some games arranged and things like that. So the guys that are in now on the later time zones, make a little note to go and support Trenny and C for their first ever live stream tomorrow. Marcus, good night, my friend. Thank you so much for joining in. You're 2 hours ahead, clearly. And he's saying it's 1 a.m. here. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And Reb, of course, it's after 1 a.m. for you as well. You're out there in Israel, and he has to get to sleep. Reb, I really appreciate you joining, especially given how late you have to stay up to join. Thank you so much for joining in tonight again. Good night, my friends. Castmate saying, any plans on a trip to Denmark? We could share a dram of Longmorn 20-year-old. You know, you're more likely to get me there for a Longmorn 16. Yeah, I'm interested in picking up a Longmorn 16. I don't have any left. So if anybody's got a sealed bottle of Longmorn 16 kicking around or knows where I can pick it up, I'm interested to try and find one. The auction prices in the UK are starting to creep up a wee bit now. I paid 110 or something for my last one. No, I didn't. That's not true. I paid £90 for my last one, but I think it's gone over 100 now to replace it. Gregor is saying, love the guys training C. Well, if you can, Gregor, and I know it's difficult if you're in France, it's going to be 6 a.m. in the morning, 9 p.m. I'm not sure. 9 p.m. Pacific would be 6 a.m. Something like that, 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning for you. But I guess you could get up early to support them. I'd like to set my alarm a wee bit early and just drop in and say hello to the guys, maybe drop in a wee super chat if they have that thing set up. Okay, guys, I'm going to attempt to try and run this quiz. If Jason is in and the Whiskey Rev is in, they might both be able to help me. I haven't been checking the direct messages again. To see if I've missed any messages. I apologise for that, guys. But the Whiskey Rev is in as well. So if anybody is happy to stick around for the quiz, I'm more than happy to say goodnight to those who don't want to hang around and test themselves. But remember, it's just for fun, and it's multiple choice as well. So, you know, you try and keep your own scores. You keep your own scores and share it with us. Throw your answers in and just participate with everybody else. It is just for fun. It is multiple choice. There are no prizes. Only honour at stake, right? Jason left the Rev saying he wasn't feeling well. Yeah, I've actually got a direct message from him saying that very thing. And I knew he wasn't well before I even went live tonight. He's been sickly for a few days. Jason, I hope you get better, my friend. There's a lot of it going around. So who's up for the quiz then? Let's see if we can get this rolling. It's 10 past 11, so we might actually manage to keep it quite tight tonight. Good. Let's see, you should be able to see the screen now. So what I'll do is I'll just click back to say thank you so much. I didn't spot that, Graham. Graham has sent me a virtual dram from Canada saying, cheers, Roy, this is great content. Do you know what, Graham? I wonder, is it, if you're enjoying it, that makes me feel fantastic because I'm literally just sitting here speaking loudly. I think the best thing about it is, and I always try to imagine myself on the other side of the camera, is that everybody is there hanging out together as well. So it's wonderful for you to join. It's wonderful for you to support me like this. And thank you very much for the virtual dram. Okay, let's go, John Paul van der Hoven. You're absolutely right. Question 1. Diamond Peak is a single malt released by which distillery? I'm clearly missing the word which in the sentence. Apologies. Diamond Peak is a single malt released by which distillery? Is it A, Michter's, B, Stranahan's, or C, Heaven Hill? A, Michter's, B, Stranahan's, or C, Heaven Hill? Which distillery makes a single malt called Diamond Peak? I actually have this. Jason, you and I both have a bottle of Diamond Peak open right now. It's actually delicious. I think I would probably be led to believe it was some kind of bourbon if I was tasting it, especially in contrast, but it's much less bourbon-y than bourbon. I don't know why that should be, but I guess because it's single malt, right? It's not corn. Everybody is suggesting that it is. In fact, the Stranahan's, everybody thinks it's Stranahan's that Diamond Peak is that. That's because I think we both just gave it away, didn't we, Jason? Or I gave it away. Oops. Let's see. Diamond Peak is a single malt released by Stranahan's. Absolutely. I can't get the screen back on me. Is it back on me? I gave away a question last week as well. I apologise. I'm losing my touch at this time. Let's go on to question 2. Let's keep it quick so that you can't consult Mr. Google. Which distillery malts 100% of its own barley requirement? So the key here is obviously the fact that I'm looking for a distillery that malts 100% of its barley requirement, not just that it has maltings. Is it A, Springbank? Is it B, Kilchoman? Is it C, Balvenie? Is it A, Springbank, B, Kilchoman, or C, Balvenie? Twillichers is saying I'm going to quit now while I'm at 100%. Daft Mill, Kilchoman. Lots of people shouting in Springbank. People thinking it's A then, I guess. The Malt Cask is saying B, that Kilchoman. Jason Unsworth is saying B. Alan Wilson, A. Whiskey Throttle, Springbank. Eric Waite, Springbank. Razvan is saying A and B and smiling about it. Paul is in, Paul Gibbs. Fantastic to see you, Paul. It's me just spotted that you're in. Era as well. Era McFault is saying A. Let's see. The distillery that malts 100% of its own barley is, of course, Springbank. Springbank. They do everything themselves, and they do everything by hand virtually. Okay, good. Let's get on to question 3. It's a Mccowan question. Mccowan 12-year-old double cask, which is a fairly recent expression for Mccowan. Mccowan 12-year-old double cask refers to which 2 types of cask? Is it A, refill bourbon and refill sherry? Is it B, American oak and European oak sherry? Or is it C, first fill sherry and refill sherry? So that's quite a tricky question. I think I'm going to leave that up there just because of the way the answers are worded so that you can process it. Is it A, refill bourbon and refill sherry, so a mix of refill bourbon and sherry casks? Is it B, a mix of American and European oak sherry? Or is it C, first fill and refill sherry? Which is it? Double cask is a 12-year-old, fairly recent from Mccowan. Now, I'd imagine most people know this, but it's curious. And yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception and confusion between this and the fine oak range. Lots of people answering already. Everybody's answering B. Whiskey Throttle is saying B, 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 B. A couple of folk are saying A, not so many. Everybody seems to think that it's a American oak and European oak sherry cask. Okay, let's see. It is B, absolutely. So the vast majority of you got that right, that it is indeed American oak and European oak sherry cask in the Mccowan double cask. I'm going to show you an image now as we go on to question 4. This is just a picture of a distillery And if it's not obvious, just tell me which distillery do you think this is. Is it Oban, A, Old Pulteney, B, or just Pulteney, C, Glenkinchie? I'm going to leave that picture up there so you can study it if you have to, but I've blocked out the sign there. It's Oban, Pulteney, or Glenkinchie. It's quite a specific distillery. The imagery, there are not many distilleries in Scotland that look like that. We've got everybody. You see, I think you're already smelling that these questions that we have are. Although Malt Chronicles is saying he's had to guess. Some people are guessing A, that it's Oban. A lot of people, I think the vast majority seem to think it's B, Pulteney Distillery. These are my questions. We're going to be getting into the revs soon. This is Pulteney Distillery. Up there in the far north of Scotland in Wick, Pulteney Distillery. Okay, so now we've got one more question of mine, and then we move into the questions that will perhaps start to separate the guessers from the geeks, I suppose. This is my question, of course. It's a Whisky Tube question, and it's which Whisky Tube channel reviewed a 25-year-old single malt on the 25th of December for its first ever review. So for the first ever review that this channel did, they went out on Christmas Day. I can't tell you the year because it would probably give it away, but they went out on Christmas Day with a 25-year-old single malt. Was it Whisky in the Six? Was it B, Scotch for Dummies? Or was it C, Malted Man Cave? And they went out on Christmas Day a few years ago with a 25-year-old. For kicks, I'll tell you that it was a Glenfarclas 25-year-old. Their first ever review. Let's see how we're getting on with this. William Slattery, good to see you, William. William is saying A. Throttle thinks it's Whisky in the Six, which I think is also A. Tony Evans is saying E. Cap'n Make It Happen. Good to see you, my friend. That's a new name in. He's saying B. Jason Unsworth A. Twilligers B. Alan Wilson B. Lots of people thinking it's either A, which is Whisky in the Six, or B, Scotch for Dummies. Castmate is out on a limb. He's saying B. And yeah, it's between A and B. Nobody thinks it's Keith at Malted Man Cave. Let's see. The first ever review of a 25-year-old Glenfarclas on the 25th of December, I'll tell you the year was 2015, by my friend Rob at Whisky in the Six. And that was his first ever review. I think the truth is that actually it was his second. I think he did a Mccowan first, but that's not on YouTube. I think he might have taken it down or something. Technical issue, or he just couldn't bear to have it up there anymore, which is so many of us feel about our original videos. So there we are at the halfway point. So before we go into the Whisky Rev questions, let's throw in your scores and tell me where you're at as we approach 20 past 11, almost closing time at the vPub. I'm going to close up my Northern Highland port cask finish. Northern Highland on a very northern island. And I'm going to attempt to open this 9-year-old Isla from the boys at Malt Musketeers. But I enjoyed that wee 9-year-old Highland. That was very, very nice. I have a feeling, as I can already smell this as it rolls into the glass, that I might enjoy this one too. Fantastic. Some smells just take you immediately to places, right? So let's see what your scores are. Let's see who's been honest and saying. Paul is saying he's got 4 out of 5. Fantastic. Etty, Malt Cask is in. Fantastic. He's saying 3 out of 5. I spoke to you earlier, Etty, sorry. Mccowan Fine and Rare is in a full house. That's because you're in the area of Sutherland, right? You're sitting right next to Clinleash. And he's got 5 out of 5. Jason Coates, 5 out of 5. Fantastic, guys. Well done. Alan Wilson's on 3. Malt Chronicles also on 5 out of 5. Error only on 2. Error, what's happened? You're off your game tonight. Cap and Make It Happen on 3. Whiskey Wolf, 4 out of 5. Alchemist, incredibly, 5. Well done, Sevi. Superb. 3 out of 5 for Sid Martin. Sid, good to see you in as well, my friend. 3 out of 5 for John Paul Vanderhoven. Bill is saying he didn't play, just listened and learned. Come on, you've got to guess. Sometimes you can guess well, Bill. Connor, 5 out of 5. I wouldn't expect anything less, my friend. Well done. Christine is in. Christine Deems, superb. Christine, good to see you. 4 out of 5. Your P, well done. Superb. Graham Young is on 4. And Whiskey Throttle is saying, did I miss a question? Sometimes I make a mess of it, Whiskey Throttle, and I get the questions out of order or I skip questions, but I don't think I've missed one tonight. Since I started doing these on little slides, I tend not to miss them anymore. And Scott A, Scott, good to see you. And he's saying 4 out of 5 with quite a bit of guessing. And Christina's got 1 out of 5. That's a disaster. That's not a pass mark, Christina. But if you get 5 out of 5 from here on in, you'll make 6 out of 10 and you will make a pass mark. So let's see if you can recover the scenario. Okay, let's go on to question 6 and the Whiskey Revs questions, if I'm honest. The Bonaccord in Glasgow is a great Glasgow whiskey pub, but which city was the Bonaccord distillery? Opened in 1855 and closed in 1896. I predict that so many of you are going to be guessing this, of course. I vaguely knew this, but it's the kind of thing I would have looked at, stared, and guessed wrongly. Is it A for Edinburgh, B for Glasgow, or C for Aberdeen? Where was the Bonaccord, the original Bonaccord distillery? I'm not talking about the cool pub that sells lots of delicious whiskies in Glasgow. I'm speaking about the Bonaccord distillery. Was it A, Edinburgh, B, Glasgow, or C, Aberdeen? Lots and lots and lots of you saying C. Now, this is a distillery that opened and closed in the 19th century. Razvan has a good idea. He's saying, let's call Ralphie. And Scott is saying C was his first guess before looking at anyone else. Well, you know what? Sometimes people, if there was 2 or 3 got it wrong at the start and everybody follows, it's a disaster. The Bonaccord distillery was originally, yes, of course, it was Aberdeen, C. So if you've answered C for Aberdeen, give yourself a point. Christina, I've just seen you saying that you're guessing A. I apologise. It's Aberdeen, the Bonaccord. And of course, for me, that was not one I would have felt confident about answering, but I decided to put it in anyway. The Bonaccord was a distillery in Aberdeen. Let's see, question 7. Again, we're in the 19th century again, and it's talking about the 1823 Excise Act, declaring that the minimum still size should be. Now, I don't want to elaborate on this until after I've shown you the answers, but this is quite interesting, and it was fairly crucial to the character of Scotch whisky that we have today. Was it A, the maximum still size? Was it A, 25 gallon still, B, 33 gallons, C, 40 gallons? So there is a way for you to kind of fathom, I guess, how to guess this a wee bit better. Was the maximum still size 25 gallons, 33 gallons, or 40 gallons? I can see that Scotty is saying yeah. Well, what's crucial about this, Scott, is that when you think about this legislation that came in, this legislation probably carved out the character of Scotch whisky forevermore until it was going to change, and it hasn't changed. I think this 1823 legislation still stands today, which means that you can't produce Scotch whisky and call it Scotch whisky if you're making it in a still that's smaller than this. So let's see what the answer is first. Lots of people are saying all over the place, actually, there's A's, B's, and C's in for this one. So yeah, the Whiskey Ref has managed to divide us all quite well here. Would I have known this? Absolutely not. I would not have known this. But as it turns out, the minimum still size was 40 gallons. So if you answered C, give yourself a point. And the reason that they made it 40 gallons as opposed to anything smaller than that is it was deemed that that would be a difficult still to make mobile and hide and move around the countryside easily. If you had to make whiskey in a 40-gallon still, it was another way of trying to snuff out these kind of illicit small stills and things like that. I believe that is my understanding. Some of that doesn't make 100% sense, and I need to do a wee bit more research. But it's curious that it's defined modern whiskey profiles, right? So there you go. Did you answer C? Christina is saying, still at 1, here to learn and have fun. Absolutely, Christina. Always say that about the quiz. If you're doing rubbish on it, if you think the questions are obscure, there's often reasons that I'm putting questions in here because I think they're kind of interesting myself, and I think there's an opportunity for people to learn from them always, right? So there we go. C, 40 gallons as we move to question 8, which is another cool one. I like this question. By test the best is the motto of Scotland's oldest independent bottler. So in that sentence, 2 clues right away. Fantastic. What is it called? By test the best is the motto of Scotland's oldest independent bottler. Are they Gordon and MacPhail, William Cadenheads or Cadenheads, depending on how you want to pronounce them, or Berry Brothers? And I already know what some of you are shouting out loud, but it's fine. Cap and make it happen. The Ardbeg music must be failing. Magic must be failing. Malt Chronicles is saying he's at 7 in a row. I can fade from now on. Well done, Bart. Superb job. Connor Strang is saying B. If you feel like you want to copy someone, Connor Strang would probably be a good guy to copy, as well as quite a few other guys in here. But there are some divided opinions. Some people think Gordon and MacPhail. Lots of people think Cadenheads. Does anybody think it's Berry Brothers, or has everyone busted me that Berry Brothers is in fact based in London? Anyway, Scotland's oldest independent bottler who have by test the best as their motto is, of course, Cadenheads. So we have 2 questions to go. I flicked onto the next one there, but it's fine. Let's go on to question 9. In which Scottish whisky region were the lost distilleries of, and here we go, we're going back way back in time. In which Scottish whisky region were the lost distilleries of Alban, Benmore, and Meadowburn? Wow, this is a tricky one. Were Alban, Benmore, and Meadowburn, were they in A, Campbelltown, were they in B, Highland, or were they in C, Lowland? Graham Young is saying, honestly, just because he loves G&M. So yeah, Campbelltown, Highland, or Lowland. The distilleries are Alban, Benmore, and Meadowburn. Now, I've kind of vaguely, in books and things, happened across these names, but I've never read much about them, and I don't really know much about them. But it was a significant part of Scotch whisky making history. Castmate is saying good night. Pleasure as always. See you in 2 weeks. Until then, here's to you in Kalila Distillers Edition. Thanks for joining, my friend. There's only one more question to go, unless you've decided that you can't recover. Regardless, thanks for joining. Nice to see you again, Castmate. Willie Dollier is in. Fantastic to see you, Willie, and he's answering A for Campbelltown. Well, let's see if you, Willie, and so many of the other guys in here, there are some people that think it's C, some people think it's B, so this is dividing people, right? These 3 distilleries of Alban, Benmore, and Meadowburn were located in Campbelltown. Now, Campbelltown, of course, at one point in history was the biggest whisky production area in terms of volume. I'm not speaking about quality or anything, although arguably it's up there in quality now. But one time it was the whisky factory of Scotland, and there were upwards of a couple of dozen, 30 distilleries located in that really, really small region because of how logistically efficient it was from a shipping perspective. So there you go. They were all in Campbelltown. If you answered A, give yourself a point. As we move into the last question, let's see if there's anybody still on for 10 out of 10, shout out. Question 10, Aberlour Abuna is a popular Nasnoid statement, cask strength malt whiskey. What does Abuna mean? So Abuna is a Gaelic term, of course. And Aberlour has been one of the most successful core cask strength expressions out there. It's doing fantastic stuff. It's just become a hell of a lot more expensive. I suppose there was some inevitability in that. But what we want to know tonight is, what does Abuna actually mean? Is it A, Abuna as it comes, B, Abuna the original, or C, Abuna the traditional? So what is Abuna or Abuna? What does that mean in the Gaelic translation? Does it mean as it comes? Does it mean the original? Or does it mean C, the traditional? So I would imagine this is an easier one than the rest. Questions coming in. Malt Cask is saying B, John Paul van der Hoven B, Jason is saying B, original. Wow, everybody's saying B. Caskmate is saying, my answer is B and I'm out. Cheers. Cheers, Caskmate. Well done. So you're going to tell us what your score was before you leave, before you go and close the door behind you? Superb. So everybody's saying B, and of course, if we go back and have a quick look, it means either origin or the original, depending on what your interpretation of the Gaelic meaning is and the context of how Abuna is used. But as a brand, Aberlour tell you that it means the original. Fantastic. Share your scores. Let me know how you got on. Christina is saying, not going to lie, my guess was probably influenced. That's right. And it happens. But the cool thing is that sometimes, you know, the crowd will go and they'll guess something, and you'll be contrary and you'll go with your gut, or you'll go with a different guess. And sometimes you're just quite right. William Slattery has answered A, as it comes. No, it was in fact B, the original. William, apologies, but it's great to have you in. It's great to see you again. Paul is admitting he's got 7 out of 10. Good pass mark, Paul. Superb. Cap and make it happen. 6 out of 10. Excellent. Twillagers almost, not quite there. 4 out of 10. Good score regardless. Good effort. Malt Chronicles is saying this is my first 10 out of 10. Bart, here's to you. Superb. 10 out of 10. Despite Whisky Rev putting some questions in there. Scott A is saying 6 out of 10. Well done, Scott. Troy is saying 2 out of 10. Well done for being honest, Troy, and admitting that you got 2 out of 10. It includes 2 guesses. Fantastic. Well done, Troy. Well done. Christina's saying 7 out of 10. Casimir is saying his score was 4 out of 10. So much to learn. There's no shame in it. That's what we're all here for. We're all here to learn from each other. It's one of the fantastic things about it. When you love something as much as we love this drink, it compels you to learn. It drives you to learn. Alchemist, 9 out of 10. Superb, Sevi. Are you kidding me on? You scored 9 out of 10. Superb. Malt Casquetti, 7 out of 10. Great stuff. Jean de la Cuisine. That's a new name. 4 out of 10. Not bad for a first go, I guess. Jean, it's fantastic to welcome you in. I hope you come back and have some more goes at it and improve on your 4 out of 10. Still a good score for the first time. Doc is saying worst ever 8 out of 10. And Doc, you were doing great right up until the halfway point. It's the Whisky Rev you have to blame, not me. Chris Bank Wildlife is saying 7 out of 10. He's chuffed. Fantastic, Chris. Jason out of 10. Brilliant. I always get 9, never 10. One day, Jason, that will come to you. Graham is 8 out of 10. Whiskey Throttle, 7 out of 10. Eric Fault, 6 out of 10. Connor Strang, 10 out of 10. Of course, my friend. Superb. Superb. Does everybody know what whiskey Connor Strang shared with me when he came up to Glasgow? Unbelievable. I'll never forget that. Malt Chronicles, right back at you. Covite, thank you. Christina, still not passing 2 out of 10. Regardless, Christina, I hope you've enjoyed the monologue and the just the general feel and the vibe of the vPub and the community here. The reason that I do this, the reason that I kind of pick myself up when I'm super tired on Thursday nights to sit in front of you and talk to you is because it's 2 things. It's because of my drive to share whiskey, just how passionate I feel about it. I just feel that it's too good a thing to keep to myself. I want everybody to know how amazing whiskey is and how engaging it is and how it can really change your relationship with alcohol. It can change your relationship with people and how you view the world. It's really a wonderful thing. But the other reason is the community. It's you guys, the fact that you turn up and I get to hang out with you despite sitting here in a spare room in my house. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do. John Paul Vanderhoven has just bought me a dram as well, saying, thanks, Roy, best pub this week. Thank you very, very much, John Paul Vanderhoven. It's a pleasure to see your face in here every time. Cheers, my friend. Jason Coates is saying, we appreciate it, Roy. Always enjoy your streams. Thank you very, very much. Obviously, sometimes I think I'm able to do better than other times. What I need to be able to do is find a way to make more time in the day so that I can prepare more for these. And I'd also like to be a bit more succinct as well, but hey. Jason Unsworth is saying the High Priestess has spoken. Priestess. Would that be me, Jason? I don't mind being a priestess. Jean de la Cuisine is saying, love the channel, learn so much about whiskey by watching this channel. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Sean. That's wonderful to hear. If I can continue to use YouTube as a way to share whiskey, that is what I want to do. I am absolutely loving having the opportunity to do so as well. Listen, thank you to everybody that's joined me tonight. We're getting on for just under the 2 hour mark again. The time goes so fast for me. It's so much fun, regardless of how much talking that I do. I would like to always try and stay focused on the whiskey thing. I didn't touch on the coin thing tonight. I wanted to talk about, I think my patrons have spoken and spoken loudly about what they want to do about the fact I don't have any coins left. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to crack on with the next design. It'll take a few weeks to sort out. It'll probably be into late this year or early next year, and batch 2 will come along. But if I get any more of these made, it just dilutes the original run, and I let down people that wanted different numbers and had to choose from the numbers that I had. So I'm just going to work on batch 2, take the advice of my patrons, and next year there will be a batch 2 coins. The people who bought the numbers for batch 1 will have priority, of course, but there'll be much more numbers for you to buy. And I apologise that I was just a bit too conservative in the amount that I bought this time round. But it's to do with the money that's available as well, right? It was a huge gamble. I didn't know that many people would actually buy them. So I'd like to thank everybody that bought one of these cool little tokens of community that you're all carrying around with you. Fantastic. Etty is saying, fantastic live again, Roy. Best thing I've watched all week. You're awesome, Etty. One day we'll shake hands and I'll buy you a dram for saying things like that. It's wonderful. Bill is saying, all the best, my friend. Glad to join in the pub this afternoon while at work. Of course, you're 9 hours behind, 8 hours behind, Bill. Fantastic. Glad to have you in. Had to close my office door. You didn't bring headphones in, Bill. You need little discreet earbuds. Troy is saying, the High Priestess of Ardbeg, I see. Great Pub Roy Graham is saying, good night, Priestess. Jason Coates is saying, the coins always forward, never back. Absolutely, Jason. Twillagers is saying, thanks for the great content. Thank you for being here. Remember, tomorrow night, if you enjoy these events, Trenny and C, Pacific time, I admit, but 9 p.m. Pacific time, the first ever live stream. Get in if I can set my alarm and go and support those guys and get that other time zone picked up. I don't know. I know that Whisky Untitled do that kind of similar time zone, I think. Charles and Wally do live streams on a Tuesday night. Trenny and C are going to be doing it. Eric Waite is always on that time zone as well when he does his live streams. But there's good nights to be had, and Trenny and C are crazy guys. They're really good fun guys, and I'm sure you'll have a good time supporting them and hanging out with them tomorrow night. Also, Vin from No Nonsense Whiskey, the guy whose flask I shared with you earlier, whoops, he's got a live stream coming up as well. I think him and I are going to have to work out the timing of our live streams. The next time, is it the next time I go out? I'll check with Vin. He's got a live stream coming up as well. We're all interested in keeping this thing going, keeping this sense of community going, the connectedness that it brings. Connor has just, what? He sent money for another 32-year-old Taninic in the pot still. Connor, you star. I'm going to keep that £13 and I'm going to match it when you come up here, and we shall both drink 32-year-old Taninic in the pot still or wherever we can find it. Mccowan, Fine and Rare, I'm hoping I can see you on Monday afternoon. I've booked a tour, my friend. I will do everything I can to hook up with you on Monday in the early evening, and I get to shake your hand finally. Brad Murphy, he's in, he's saying, hi Roy, it's a wee bit early here to have a whiskey for breakfast, even if it is after 5 p.m. somewhere in the world. I'm a novice at this stage. Heaps at this stage, heaps, but learning heaps. Cheers, Brad. Brad, it's fantastic to welcome you in, my friend. First time I've seen you in, I think, and I'll welcome you here just as I say goodnight to everybody. Thank you to Jason for his moderation while he was here. Sometimes I forget to thank him, and he's a superstar and a gentleman as well. The Whisky Rev, it was brilliant to have him in here again tonight. I'm hoping that I can do a Patreon-only stream, and I can get to introduce my patrons to the Whisky Rev, and him and I can get together and have an argument over who influenced each other the most in whiskey. Yoshi Yoji is saying, thank you for another stream. Time for me to head home from work. Lol. And Eric is saying, the Whiskey Dick Bill is going live tomorrow night. Yes, and he's also announcing his own coins as well. The Whiskey Dick Bill has his own coins. I forgot to mention that earlier. Eric, good shout. Thank you very, very much. And The Alchemist is saying, will you have coins available for purchase? Eric, wait for us in the UK. Eric is also, I believe, I'm not letting the cat out the bag, Eric, am I? He has things well in hand. And the Whisky Rev is saying, that's a short argument. Well, my friend, there's a twist, as always with me and Aquavite. There's a twist to the argument. So I think you're going to have fun. And if you're up for doing it, let's do it. Listen, guys, once more, thank you to everyone. It's been an absolute blast again. I'm going to cut this before it hits the 2-hour mark. I love you all. I love being part of this community. I love whiskey. And I'll see you with the very last drop of my Isla 9-year-old. I'll say, Slanchava. Until next time.